Here we go. The 2012 summer blockbuster-based series of games begins with Battleship, the video game based on the movie based on the board game that has little to do with the movie or the video game. And I know there's many of us listening who remember the old school Battleship board game commercials with the ever-popular catchphrase, "You sunk my battleship." Alright, so check this out. What we've got here is, and I'm not making this up, a first-person shooter mixed with a tactical naval strategy game. Which sounds like the most bizarre combination of things ever, and it's kind of weird, but not as weird as, say, tequila and mayonnaise. It's more on the lines of, say, a driving game mixed with a food preparation simulator. You know how it is. Every now and then you've got to pull over and serve somebody ice cream with sprinkles. Well, in this game you've got to take a break from shooting aliens to give commands to your fleet of battleships and submarines, who are also fighting said aliens. And the aliens on land that all look like Cobra hydrofoil pilots from G.I. Joe drop wild cards when you blow them away that you can then apply to your fleet. It sounds nuts, but for what it's worth, it actually works fairly well. Battleship, the video game, is not going to go down in history as one of the best games of all time, primarily because it suffers from the problems when you combine two drastically different things. It's a mediocre first-person shooter and an extremely basic naval combat simulator. But the shooter sequences, which make up most of the gameplay, get really challenging near the end of the game because you don't have very many weapons. And the only gun that really brings these big guys down is the shotgun, so you've always got to have at least one shotgun, and you can only carry two guns at the same time. So, while neither part of this game would stand on its own as like a great game when you combine the two of them, it's interesting. I cannot fault them for trying this because it actually kind of makes sense when you play it. You've got to get through some of the shooter sequences quickly so you can pick up those wild cards, or else your entire fleet will get sunk. So you can't just hide in a corner and hope that your battleships will do it without you, because they won't. They'll all sink and you'll feel horrible knowing that there's like 1,000 people on that battleship going, "You sunk my battleship," because of that coward on land. We're watching the Xbox 360 version of this game, and I think it's important to note that the 360 and PS3 versions are like this, while the Wii, 3DS, and Nintendo DS versions are strictly a turn-based strategy game. Every now and then, you can pick up those ship steering wheel things, whatever they're called, and go into a ship shooter mode, which is nice for destroying enemies quickly. And the blue wild cards are used to strengthen each of your vessels in sea combat. Battleship. Who knew when the board game was made that this would be the video game? It's such a departure from the old school board game. And yes, I have a copy. A really old one, I might add. Check out that cover. Dig those groovy haircuts. It's an interesting choice of genres to support the big-budget Battleship movie, for which I literally laughed out loud when I first saw the trailer. Like, what's next? Connect 4! Where space cowboys are fighting undersea lava lizards for control of the plastic Connect 4 playing field. Starring Bruce Campbell and Morgan Freeman. Battleship has its obvious flaws. The transition from shooting to the naval combat scenes take a couple seconds to load each time, which seems like an eternity. It's jerky at times. The game is relatively short, and I'm not sure I found a whole lot of replay value, but for what it's worth, it might make a fun rental. Simply because of the uniqueness and relatively decent gameplay. There's no question that Battleship, the video game, isn't as good as Battleship, the board game, but I had fun playing it. And with the perceived demise of archaic forms of media like comic books and board games, at least we get them all resurrected as big-budget explodey movies. And video games based on said big-budget explodey movies like Battleship.